Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We are back for the final episode of the Halo Jumping Top 10 for this series on Halo 5. Of course, myself, Hunter, is back as per usual as the host, and we have Jumping Royalty, Smokey Massacre, and Snoz both back again. We are discussing a topic that I think we're all pretty qualified to discuss, considering how long we've all been around in Halo Jumping. The top 10 best competitors to have never achieved total victory on any course. Now, before can confirm Snoz did not make the list. But before we get into it, I will quickly go through all of the names that have won a course, so therefore aren't eligible to be on this list. I'm just gonna skim through them very quickly, so that the viewers, if some random viewer at home is like, "Why is this guy not on the list?" Well, maybe it's because this guy has actually won a course and you didn't know about it. So we have Re95, Smokey Massacre, Buddy, Jop, DHG Fireball, Ump Double Ump, Phil on Abs, Joey on many courses at this point, Weapon Mat on even more different courses, Petrillo on Flames course and I believe Cheese's course, Chumpy on Sonic's course, and Tricky Cyrus also on Flames course. And I'm pretty sure that is everybody. I'm pretty sure I haven't missed anyone out. Yeah. Okay. So we will quickly say the 10 names, and then we'll have a quick shout out to the honourable mentions. So the 10 competitors that we believe are the best competitors to have never achieved total victory, in alphabetical order, we have Chris or Siren, Drago is Sick, Flameosaurus or just Flame, Go Tanks, the Commissioner, myself, Hunter Unit 751. Mighty Max 80, Alpha Puma. Oh no, well I was gonna say Alpha Puma, but I guess it's XX Alpha Puma. But let's just get the X's out of the way. X Dom to Bomb X, Swantron or Sauron Sucks, and Vulcan or Strafe Helix, but we're gonna call him Vulcan for the sake of this video. Kind of botched it at the end there because I put the X's. The X's should have definitely been at the end, but oh well. The honourable mentions, we struggled to think of many, but I think I think we came up with 3 names that we thought should get a shout out on this. Paddy Freakin, Rog, and Free MMO Direct. Although some people might think Free, some people might say, how is Free getting mentioned here? Other people might be saying, well, shouldn't Free already be on this list because of how well he's been doing? But I think we agreed it was a little bit too early to put Free on this list of the best ever all time.
Yeah, he'll probably be ineligible for this list within the next few months anyway.
Yeah, if we did this list in like a year, maybe Free might be number 1, maybe. I'm not sure.
No, in a year, Free won't be allowed to be on this list because he's probably going to have a total victory by then.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
Maybe Sane. Might want to mention Sane.
I'll give Sane a shout out, but
just
I do
for his.
think...
I mean, we're talking top competitors. His career goes for
deserves.
so long,
Okay, yeah,
he'd be number 11 on my list.
But Sane is, without doubt, a good jumper in his own right, as is Paddy. Some people like to compare Paddy and Chris.
Oh yeah, Paddy too.
We pumped for Chris, but obviously Paddy has had success as well. And then Rog, I think we were all agreed. Rog, honestly, more so was more recent, based on Halo Infinite, has really picked things up. But
yeah, I feel like we're not really including Infinite yet for this, and if we did, then I think Rog probably is on this list.
But we do have 10 names, and I'm curious before we get into who's where, as to how each of you guys sort of ended up ordering your list. Like, what was your thinking for how you ended up ranking these 10 names?
Yeah, for me, it basically just came down to overall impact on jumping, like kind of how how long they've been around, how well known they are, like what their level of impact was on any given course at any given time. So, not necessarily, my list isn't necessarily like who in this list is actually like the best, like who is the best at jumping that never got a total victory. It's not really that. It's more the competitors that were the most deserving of a total victory based on their careers.
I kind of did that, but a little less. I mean, obviously, if we said top most successful competitors, that would be different. But to me, it's almost, it's not completely fan favorites, but that has a little bit to do with it for me. So your impact can be seen in more than just your results, in my opinion, and we'll get into that as we do this.
So let's get into it. Smokey, let's have your bottom 5 from just the names from 10 to 6.
At number 10, I have Mighty Max. At number 9, I have Flame. At number 8, I have Swan. At number 7, I have Dom. And at number 6, I have Chris.
Oh, okay. Snoz, same question, 10 to 6.
Number 10, I have Mighty Max. Number 9, I have Flame. Number 8, I have Chris. Number 7, I have Swan. Number 6, I have Dom.
Damn.
Oh,
We were exactly the same.
Is that the
Like
same?
I said,
That's the
I
exact
feel
same
like-
5
well,
names.
Same 5 names.
Yeah, I don't think any of us are going to be too far off, but it gets a little, like I said, it gets a little subjective, because if you just went by results, my list would be a little different, for sure.
And we might as well start at the bottom, because you both have Mighty Max at 10.
I mean, Mighty Max is he's a really good jumper, and I think when you look at his career, especially on like Rog's course, he was one of the top dogs there for sure for quite a while. And then I think on my course, 2 stage 3s that were back to back really helped him stand out, but unfortunately he just hasn't really followed that up with a lot of success lately. I think his success is measured over a shorter time span than the rest of these competitors, so I think every other person on this list, I don't want to say more deserving of a total victory, because he would be if he got one. There's nothing against him to earn one, but I just think that the results and the time and dedication that the other people have put in on this list, and just the abilities overall, I think all those kind of coagulate to make a list of people that deserve it a little bit more than Mighty Max. But I mean, Mighty Max still a great jumper, and
Yeah, I feel for me, it's more of an unfortunate case where I just don't know as much about Mighty Max as I do the rest of these competitors. I know how good he is, but I just don't, like the other guys, I can imagine and remember a lot of milestones they've hit, like everyone. But I just don't know a lot about Mighty Max, and that's part of the and I think it's important to note that being 10 on this list, I mean, there is nothing bad about anyone who's on this list. It's all good, right? These are the best. So 10, 5, 7, you're in the high tier, so can't look at it as a negative.
Perhaps maybe those 2 tournaments of success that he had on Smokey's course, maybe in some ways was a good sign or indication that he can be successful on other courses if he puts his time and focus into it. And maybe that's what ended up getting him into this top 10. But as Snoz says, it's because if he was a one-trick wonder, or if he was a one-course wonder, he probably wouldn't be on this list, I think is fair to say. But I think, the fact that despite him having a much shorter career than pretty much all of the other 9 names on this list, the fact that he's made it into this top 10 is a huge credit to him, I think. So let's look at Flame, since you both have Flame at number 9. I am a little surprised at this one, because I actually have Flame in my top 5. So I'm interested to see. We'll go with Snoz first on this one. Why Flame was at 9?
Well, I can see why Flame's on the list. His consistency. I feel like he got more stage 3s in the past than he does now, but he's still so consistent. He's more than likely clearing stages when he does tournaments, and that's not just a single tournament, that's all the tournaments. So he's just really consistent, so that's why I put him ahead of Mighty Max.
I mean, consistency on certain courses for Flame, yeah, sure. Like, he's not consistent at all on mine. And, I'm definitely going to have a little bit of bias with this entire list that does lean itself mostly, like a significant impact on my list is my own course and how these people have done. And, I mean, yeah, Flame, he's had a couple good tournaments here and there, but he hasn't done anything as special as all the other people on this list. He hasn't even done as well as Mighty Max has, at least
That's,
for a personal
you
best.
know,
But
I do agree with that, but at the same point, the more I think about it, he does have a final stage, and some of these people don't. But I knew that when I did mine, so I'm kind of with you on it. But we're kind of nitpicking, right? A lot of these
yeah,
spots are really close together.
they are.
Like if you change 6 to 9, you wouldn't even blink an eye, right? They're just all really good. So I don't know. It gets tough.
Yeah, I think my pickings was really just based on. I mean, obviously it was largely based on Rog's course, again similar to Mighty Max. Although he has had a little bit of success on Smokey's course, especially most notably that breakout performance in 19. And I think the big thing on my course was the consistency, the fact that he just out of nowhere, like he's had I think 6 appearances. His first appearance was on the 360 with a joke gamer tag. Then he disappears for 2 tournaments and then comes back on Halo 5, and he's never failed stage 1 since. So that level of consistency, I think, definitely played a part in it. But a lot of my influence was down to Rog's course. I think he's got some of to the best of my knowledge, I think he's got some of the best numbers in terms of stage 1 and stage 2 clears.
He does.
He's obviously an all-star, and he's been to the final on Rog's course. Let's go with Chris. Snoz has Chris at number 8. Smokey has Chris at number 6. I think we can both agree. We can all agree. Sorry, a supremely talented jumper that maybe hasn't always had shown it with his results.
Yeah, I mean, if you, like I said, this isn't just based on results for me. If it was just based on results, Chris would probably be number 10. But when I think of competitors and who I want to watch, I know it's going to sound weird, but his intros is what actually bumped him up for me a little bit, because I want to see his run. I want to see his intros because they're always amazing. They're always different. And that's part of it for me. So obviously on talent alone, you could argue he's at the top of the list, but based on the actual tournaments, results, and how he does in different tournaments, I mean, I feel I got him pretty close, but at the same point, he doesn't have the only reason I have him ahead of Flame is because I'm not basing it just on results. If it was just on results, then I would have Flame ahead of him. But when you say top competitor, I'm adding a little bit more than just results to it. Maybe I shouldn't do that, but that's how I did my list.
I think you hit the nail on the head there with if you go by purely his results, he could be at the bottom. If you go by his talent, he could be number 1. So, that's why, I mean, for me, he's up at number 6. I put him ahead of Dom and Swan. Mostly, I think, because of his ceiling. And, I mean, he's had really good performances on my course, and I feel like when in comparison to Dom and Swan, like if you were going to ask me right now, like which of these competitors do I think out of those 3, like which of these 3 do I think could get total victory, and who would I be rooting for the most to get total victory out of those 3? Those 2 questions combined, and Chris is just ahead of those other 2, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think extremely flamboyant, since I like to use that word, but in a way that's like entertaining and makes you want to see, how far he can do. And it's not even just the intros. How many runs has Chris had where he's just zoomed through a course and made it look like a piece of cake, and especially stage 1s, obviously. I can certainly see that. Let's go with my man. Let's go with Dom. Dom to Dom X. Obviously, there's a few names on this list actually that are no longer active competitors, but Dom is the oldest of everyone on this list that has been active, has been out of the community for the longest time. But still on this list, Smokey. You obviously know Dom very well, more so from the original days of your course.
Yeah, I definitely think the biggest thing hurting Dom is the fact that he hasn't been around for, really like MCC, Halo 5, and what we've done, Halo Infinite. His story is for the most part over when it comes to jumping. So there's not much anticipation of what he could end up doing, which is like it makes you wish that he got a total victory at some point. And in his day, he was so good. He was a great jumper. He was a great competitor. Never got a total victory, but he's definitely someone who it would have been cool to see him do it, and he definitely had the skills to do it, which is why I have him at 7. I think the reason I put him in front of Swan, Flame, and Mighty Max is just because I feel like his significance in jumping, he was jumping at a time where there weren't as many people, so the significance that he had just carried more weight in that time period. He was just such an enjoyable competitor to watch and person to be around too.
Yeah, I actually have Dom at 6, and I was going to put him at 10 because he hasn't been around, just like you said, for so long, but I felt that it was important for the history of jumping to be included in this. And if you look at the history of jumping, Dom is in that conversation. He's an all-star. Back when there was very few people, when we first started watching videos, before I even did my first tournament, I knew who Dom was.
All-star on my course and Smokey's course, which I guess not.
That's the other thing I was about to say.
That, yeah.
No one below him on my rankings can say that. So
yeah, it's a good. Yeah.
The last thing I'd say with Dom is he has that impact besides results like Chris. He was the original derp, if you will. Yeah. And that kind of matters, man. I mean, it was the humor part of the videos. I mean, I remember that stuff. That I'm including that kind of stuff in my rankings here. If it was just results, like I've said, it would be a little different.
Yeah, I think I definitely leaned a little bit. I think I definitely leaned a little bit more on the results side by putting Dom at 10.
Well, and you're fair to put him 10 because he's been gone for so long. Like I said, I almost did the same, but instead I jumped him all the way to 6.
But there's nothing wrong with that, Dom. If there's one person that can get away with putting you at 10 on their list, it's me. So, which brings us to Swan as the last name out of the bottom 5. I'll just quickly say, I'll lead it on here. I think a lot of Swan has to be judged on, again, Rog's course. We've mentioned Rog's course quite a few times now. But the numbers that Swan put up and on Rog's course, records and streaks and stuff.
Yeah, I think if I were to really go through and analyze everything with him on Rog's course, he probably would actually be higher than 8 for me. But this is just kind of my gut reaction was to put him at 8, ahead of Flame and ahead of Mighty Max, because I just feel like he's a better jumper than those two, and I feel like he had so much potential that he, at least on my course, he just started not performing as well, and also started just not competing. His is definitely more weighted towards the fact that he is so damn talented and so good at jumping. He just never really he was never able to hit that home run. But yeah, I think when you consider Rog's course, he's definitely he's got to be high. I mean, if you were just looking at people who deserve a total victory on Rog's course that never got it, he might be the number 1 for all of Rog's course, just isolated by itself.
I'd love to know how he'd be today if he never stopped competing.
Yeah.
Because, like you say, the guy had the ability to be good on all the courses. He didn't do as good on some, but he was pretty damn consistent, and he was just super good. And I don't know. I feel like the only reason he's 7 and not higher is because he kind of shortened his career a little bit.
Yeah, personal reasons and then just life in general.
Well, life happens for sure.
Yeah. But I think, we've obviously just mentioned the success on Rog's course, and maybe didn't quite... Well, he definitely didn't have that level of success on my course and Smokey's course, but did still have some success. I think actually we've discussed this on the Swan podcast on my channel. Go check that out, by the way. The cutoff point was probably when he got to the final on Rog's course, and then life stuff happened. and then he was a different competitor. But I would still give him credit where credit's due for the fact that he did, for a short period of time, eventually managed to turn things around, where he got back-to-back clears on Smokey's course. I think he had 2 clears in a row on Rog's course as well, after not clearing since he got to the final. I think I'm also correct in saying he's the first ever Stage 1 clear on Irish's course. He did have... It's good that, I think, Swan, when he was in his peak years, when he was doing, great on Rog's course, and he had a bit of success on my course and Smokey's course, I think it's also great that after his peak was over, he did eventually get a little bit of more success, even if it wasn't to the same level.
Okay.
Which brings us to the top 5. We already know which 5 names are in the top 5.
I have a feeling, Smokey, ours are going to be identical orders. I could be wrong.
I feel like I could see it being very different.
Let's find out. We'll go Snoz first. 5 to 1.
Me first?
Yeah. Okay.
So at 5 I got Vulcan.
Okay.
At 4 I got Gotenks. At 3 I got Puma. At 2 I got Drago. And I've got you at 1, Hunter.
Okay.
Snoz, we do not have a single one that's the same.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
I stand by my order, though.
My order of 5, I have Puma. 4, I have Gotenks. 3, I have Vulcan. 2, I have Hunter. And 1, I have Drago.
Let's go for Puma first, then, I guess. I think it's probably fair to say this is the first name we've discussed on the list where you could definitely say had success across, consistent levels of success across all of the big 3 courses, rather than, I guess Puma's, actually, I don't know. You could make an argument that, was it my course, is it still Smokey's course where he's had his biggest successes, or is it my course?
I think his consistency is Smokey's course. He obviously had his best finish on your course, but he was an all-star on Smokey's, right?
Yeah,
it comes down to one simple fact for me. And again, like I said, I'm gonna weigh my own tournament a little bit more in this list than others. And out of those last 5, he's the only person on my course who didn't get to the final stage.
I just, most of them I don't put him in front of. I just think he's been far more consistent over a longer period of time than Vulcan. I'm also considering the fact that he's gotten to stage 4 on your course, Hunter, as well. His consistency was ridiculous for a long stretch. And when, obviously, it's not as consistent anymore, even though he still competes once in a while. But obviously, it's tapered back. But I just feel like, and I could be wrong, but if you go look at results of him and Vulcan, I think Puma's got more consistently successful tournaments.
Consistency, yeah, I'd probably agree that Puma was by far more consistent than Vulcan. I think you could probably make the case that Vulcan has had the bigger successes more often than Puma, in terms of perhaps getting to a final stage. But consistency-wise, I would.
But
yeah,
how many
agree.
final stages has Vulcan got to?
Well, he's got one on. Well, yeah, he's got one on mine, one on Smokey's, and one on Rog's. So,
if that's true, and he has one on all 3, then I feel like maybe I made a little mistake. But at the same point, I feel like we're nitpicking at this point.
I can understand your reasoning. I do. I think the way you said it was probably right. I think Vulcan. Oh, sorry.
If obviously today,
yeah,
I would be picking Vulcan. There's no question. But I'm trying to go through the history of their career, and I just feel like Puma's been largely more successful for a much longer period of time.
Consistency-wise, I would agree. Puma takes it over Vulcan. In terms of overall success, you could make a case for Vulcan. You know what? We might as well. We've just started talking about Vulcan. We might as well get into him in a little bit more detail. Was the fact he's got to a final on all 3 courses something that you took into account, Smokey?
Yes, absolutely. Because when you look at Puma and you look at, Gotenks is at 4 for me too. So he's also he plays a role in where these people finish. But since we're just talking about the Puma Vulcan relation, Vulcan has more final stages. I think that just jump talent wise, he's ahead of Puma, and like this again, this doesn't. It's kind of like a weird thing to say out loud, but like this is genuinely how I feel about it. When you think Puma and Vulcan, I am way more surprised that out of all these other courses, out of all of them, it is way more surprising to me to think that Vulcan does not have a total victory rather than Puma.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like it was just the other day when we were talking about Vulcan was the best jumper that didn't have a stage 4, and I feel like he's braked out in the last year or two. But I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong on my time frame, but I just feel the same thing. I just feel like the last 25% of Vulcan's jumping career has been so good, but for the first 75%, I think Puma was better, I guess.
Well,
I just feel like Puma had longer sustained success, that's all.
Well, it's crazy because you either measure via tournaments or you measure via time. And when you measure, like when I look at my own course, I think Puma was the best compare on MCC from 13 to 16. Undeniable, he was the best in that span.
I mean, you're right.
That was from 13 to 16.
Well,
sorry.
I gotta be honest. You make a good point.
But that's 1 year. That was just 1 year time. 4 tournaments,
But
1
you
year
do
time.
make a
Whereas
good
now,
point.
4 tournaments could be 4 years. You know.
But you do make a good point, because based on the fact that you could make the argument Vulcan should be easily number 1. With a stage 4 on all 3 of the main courses, if you want to call them that. No one else has that here. Nobody.
This list, no. I think the only other person...
Nobody does. I mean, it's unfair for Hunter because he can't run his own course. I get that. But,
yeah.
I mean, when you think about the fact that Vulcan has a stage 4 on Smokies, Hunters, and Rogs, I kind of feel like I should have known that, and I feel like my list is a little off because of that.
The only other person that's done it on the big 3 is Ump, and obviously Ump's won a course. I think that Vulcan, for me, I put Vulcan at 3, but honestly, I can see Vulcan being so difficult to place when you look at his whole career, because he's got a final on Rogs, but it came very much out of the blue. He didn't really... It was very early into Halo... Well, not early into Halo 5, but like early into his career on Rogs course, Tournament 7. Arguably, when he got to the final on my course in 21, it was also a little bit out of the blue, because it was the first time he got to stage 3 on my course. The Smokey one was a little bit more different, because that one was based off of... That one was the complete opposite, really. It was based off of... not sustained, but he was showing... He started showing a little bit more... Continual improvements. In a new era where... we've had a total victory, the course has been revamped, and you're looking to see who's the new names that's going to step up. And one of the first to do it was a guy that had never managed to get past stage 2 in the previous era. And then he steps up in the first tournament on a new era and gets to stage 3 for his first time. Obviously, he's had this whole stage 1 curse thing going on Smokey's course, where he has a good tournament and then he has a bad tournament. But whenever his good tournaments come around, he then got back to stage 3, got a first place, failed stage 1 again, and then got to the final stage. That's probably one of the things that sort of lets Vulcan down on the consistency side of things. On Rog's course and on Smokey's course, sorry, and I suppose on Rog's course as well. He's definitely had some dud runs on Rog's course. I can honestly see Vulcan being really difficult, super difficult to place, but I don't think any of us are in disagreement that he deserves a spot in the top 5, or in the case of me and Smokey, in the top 3. Okay, so I guess we got to talk about the commish Go Tanks. You guys, rightly so, both have him at 4. I put him.
I
at
probably
7.
would have him at 5 now. I feel bad because I didn't have some stats on Vulcan. I should have.
No, I can understand that. It's fair. It's very way. I had him all the way down to 7, purely because I feel like
one tournament. Yeah.
I feel like his biggest successes have undoubtedly been on Smokey's courses, but the successes he has had on Smokey's course are on a level that in some cases, obviously the most notable being the stage 3 clears, is untouchable. Like, no one else has been able to match it. And Smokey, obviously it's your course, so I think you should take the lead.
I don't have to say much about him, because like the reason I have Puma at 5 and Gotenks at 4, it's one thing, one simple thing. It's all I need to say is 3 final stages.
Yeah.
3 final stages, and the dude never even beat the first obstacle of the final stage. So, yeah, like if you're asking like who deserves a total victory there, Gotenks has been to that tower 3 times. No one else has done that, and no one else has had that many shots at it.
2 in a row as
and
well.
2 in a row. No one else has done that. He's got 2 records that, despite how many other amazingly talented jumpers there are, still somehow those 2 records are his and his alone. And like, how can he not? Honestly, the more I say, the more I think I should have had him up at 3 ahead of Vulcan. But I think Vulcan is still ahead because of the other courses when you consider everything else. Like, Gotenks doesn't perform too well on other courses. So
had a little bit of success on my course, but obviously the big one that Rog will always bring up is the fact that he's never cleared stage 1 on his course. Even though he's gotten closer than probably anyone, the amount of times he's got to like the last obstacle or the second to last obstacle. Gotenks puts up good runs, he just hasn't been able to get over the line on Rog's course.
His results on Smokey's course alone puts him in the top 5. It's just insane to get 3, and it's not just 3 final stages, right? Just everything. But I mean, it makes you wonder how good he could be if he actually applied himself with the same amount of prep for the other courses. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm going to ask an interesting question here. If, let's say, Gotenks had his time again, specifically in terms of these 3 attempts at the final stage, and let's say he could get over this weird hump where he just couldn't do the Heavenly Ladder for whatever reason, do you think Gotenks would still have been good enough to get to the top? Because the time limit on all 3 of those finals that he got to is super tight and super difficult. Do you think if Gotenks could have got past the Heavenly Ladder in one of those 3 attempts, he could have got to the top in time?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. He got 3 stage 4s in was it 4 or 5 tournaments? How many was it over?
7 tournament spell.
So were all 3 of these stage 4s the same?
No, go on.
Because then I'd say
they were all the same obstacles. They were all the same obstacles.
Then I think he probably could have got it, because I'm a firm believer it's next to impossible to get total victory on your first attempt on it without like getting a feel for it. But he got there 3 times. If he was getting by the Heavenly Ladder every time and was getting a feel for the other obstacle, that 3rd attempt he got on it, yeah,
it's crazy. Everyone who's got total victory on my course did it on their first time at the final stage. Yeah.
I mean, that doesn't happen anymore that often, though, does it? You know, the best jumpers aren't doing that. So, Gotenks is such an easygoing guy. He's all good. You know, yeah. I don't think he doesn't, like, I've seen people fail certain things and they're pretty devastated. I'm sure he was disappointed, but Gotenks don't miss a beat, man. He's chill. He's still going to be
takes
fun.
Takes it in his stride. Which brings us to the top 2. I'm not going to toot my own horn too much, but I am not in any way surprised that these 2 names have come out as the top 2 in both of your lists.
It has a lot to do with everything. Top competitor is not just results for me, right? And that's why you've got look, you, Puma, Gotenks, Drago, with the exception of Dom. These are the guys who have had the longest careers, going back the farthest, pretty much, right? There's no surprise I did that. I feel like one of the things that you have going for you that no one has, first of all, and maybe I shouldn't, but you running maybe the first groundbreaking course actually was involved in my thought process and your streak on Smokey's course. It also was the fact that you don't have your course to compete in, and you still have so many results that are so good with that many few, like most of Dom's biggest stuff is on yours and Smokey's course, but you don't even get to run one of those courses. So I took that into account, and you've just been, but I think your streak had a lot to do with it for me because that was one of the biggest deals that we've had. And let's face it, Drago vanished for quite a while, and I think that had a little bit to do with my decision too. But I mean, it's not by a lot. Drago's stage 2 and 3, his consistency of getting to stage 3 was ridiculous. But I mean, at the end of the day, with the history behind you, Hunter, it was hard for me to put Drago over you, especially like if Drago never stopped competing and competed in all of Halo 4 and Halo 5 and MCC. We might be having a different conversation if he had good results, right? But he didn't. And so I feel like you definitely are the two that stand out for me.
I do think that when you guys were both competing at the same time, I think I would assume you would probably agree with this, that the perception was that Drago was definitely
top dog
at a higher level.
Yeah,
he was at a, like up until tournament 11. Like if you just look at the first 10 tournaments of my course, people would put Drago as number one for sure. He was the first person to get to the final stage, which on my course that automatically makes him that much more deserving of a total victory. But I think when you look at the long scale history of just my course, longer term, Hunter, you were more deserving of a total victory on my course than Drago is, because you've been in every single tournament. So that you're ahead on there when it comes to just my course. But the reason I have Drago at number one is because of your course. Because obviously, like Snoz said, you can't compete on your own course, so that's, it's an unfair advantage for Drago in the context of this list. But I mean, Drago he's like, he was top 2 probably, like him and Ree. It was those two as the top dogs for a while on that course. And I think when you look at both my course and your course and the fact that Drago never got told to victory, like that dude he's just such a legendary staple of both of our courses. And the fact that he never got his steak dinner on either courses, it just feels like
It does feel wrong, doesn't it?
Yeah, like he is just his name and his impact on the course, just for both of our courses, he feels like someone who got total victory. When I think of Dragon, I'm like he won a course, or like he probably won my course. No, he didn't win my course. He didn't win Hunter's course. But Rog's course would lend itself more to Hunter's cause, but
and it's a crime you don't have one.
To me, oh, for sure. I mean, yeah, that's why he's number 2 on this list for me. I think the reason why it's harder for me to incorporate Rog's course into this equation is that, no offense, Hunter, but I don't think you'd be labeled as like a top 3 competitor on that course. Whereas Drago was literally like number 1 or number 2 on both of our courses. He was at that level. He was the person that you thought would be the first to get total victory on my course. And then for your course, I mean, he was right there alongside Bree in terms of having a chance at it. So I think that's why I think the fact that Drago was literally that guy on 2 separate courses. Rog's course, neither of you really fell into that category, so that's why I didn't include Rog's. I think for my course specifically, it's you hands down, but when I add your course to the equation, I just can't believe that Drago never beat all 4 stages on either of our courses.
You've judged me based on your course, whereas you've judged Drago on your course and my course.
Yeah.
But we're nitpicking once again with you two, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
It's super close, and there's different reasons for both.
Rog, if you're watching this, Rog, I'd love to know your take. My personal take, I think, consistency-wise, I may be just about scrape into the top 10 in your like best competitors, Rog. But I'd love to hear your opinion. What I would say is, obviously, it's extremely difficult for me to judge. I put myself at number 1. I don't have any, brags or bare bones about saying that, but I had no doubt when I was putting together this list. I had absolutely no doubt in my mind that me and Drago were the top 2. I'm not gonna talk myself up. I've got over 100 stage 1 clears. I've got so many, successes. not just Smokey's course, without a doubt, the biggest successes have come on Smokey's course. But I've always been proud that I've been able to put up a solid enough level on pretty much any course, apart from perhaps abs, but that's a whole different ball game. I think any other course you could go through and you could see I've had some levels of success, just obviously not to the same scale as what I've had on Smokey's course. Drago, I just love Drago's story because it's one that probably some viewers still don't really know. The fact, well, not know, but like only vaguely are aware of it. The fact that he was one of the OG guys back in the day. Spartan Warrior when it was a thing.
Mm-hmm.
He was one of the OG guys. Then that ends, and all of the jumpers that were around there are looking for a new course. My course starts up, re-establishes himself as the top dog, with probably, if we're just looking at Halo Reach, probably Drago is the number 2, below Ree. But he's thinking, oh, okay, he's done good. Drago's doing really well, but he's not the top dog. And then Halo 4 comes along, and a new course, Smokey's course. And now Drago has a chance, now has a shot at being the top dog. This guy that's been around for a few years as an OG jumper, and he's found a course where he's the first person to get to the final stage, the first person to get there twice, but he just can't get over the line. And it's just one of those great classic stories that is just great but tragic. I would just say the best Drago, without doubt, the best jumper based on raw talent that I've ever seen. The dude could just, if he was still in his prime now, I just couldn't begin to imagine like what he could what he could have achieved with all these different courses that are going on right now. Since I've said all that, great to have Drago back now on a more consistent basis on Halo Infinite, and getting some success as well. We have our 10 names, and usually the way the rule goes is that if you guys pick a different name, which you have done at number 1, I have to pick the deciding winner. But because one of the answers is me, we're not going to do that. Instead, we're just going to go on majority rules. And 2 of us picked me, and 1 of us picked Drago. So I win either way! The first time I've won one of these, at last! Number 1 in one of my own top 10s. It took long enough. The viewers on the screen, you guys can see each of our individual top 10, the order. You can now see my list, what order I put everyone in. I actually also put Vulcan at number 3. And now you guys are also seeing all 3 of our lists combined together to figure out who is actually where if you combined all 3 of our lists together. And that wraps up the top 10 and wraps up the end of the series on Halo 5. We've done 10 of these top 10s on Halo 5. And much like with the quiz, I'm glad that I've had these 2 great friends of mine here to do this last episode on Halo 5.
Remember that quiz, Snoz?
Yeah, remember that quiz? This is great if I now I have to put the quiz out first before I put this out.
Why?
It'll be funnier if you do it the other way around.
Yeah, good point. We'll who knows? Maybe we'll like with the quiz. Maybe we'll bring the top 10 back in the future on Halo Infinite. I don't know, but there's certainly plenty of lists that I've still got that we could do in the future on Halo Infinite maybe bring it back as a new series. But for now, with these guys spring jumping all around me, something I can't do, I'm gonna say thank you to Smokey.
Top 10 greatest spring jumpers of all time. Go.
Top 10 greatest spring jumpers. I'll let you guys discuss that in the post show. I'm going to say thanks to these guys, and I'm going to say goodbye. These guys can say goodbye, and
bye-bye.
Yeah.
Thanks and goodbye.
That wraps it up, guys.